My thanks to Bring Me to Life Radio, and welcome to the Cinema Scribe. Mountaineer George Mallory became famous, although some would say infamous, for three little words he uttered to a New York Times reporter in 1923 when describing his multiple attempts to ascend Mount Everest, the world's highest peak. Quote, "Because it's there," unquote. It's an expression that's become virtually synonymous with embarking on a daunting endeavor simply for its own sake. Such undertakings are truly impressive, even if they're not for everyone. Indeed, where would the spirit of human adventure be were it not for this kind of attitude? So it's been for an intrepid urban hiker who undertook the challenge of walking all 8,000 plus miles of roads, paths, and bridges in New York's 5 boroughs, a journey gorgeously chronicled in The World Before Your Feet, available on DVD and video on demand. When someone attempts the previously untried, especially when it's of an awe-inspiring magnitude, onlookers may think the adventurer inspiring or crazy. Accomplishing such a never-before-achieved feat is extraordinary, no matter how one ultimately views it. But the lingering question associated with such a venture still remains: why? That's especially true when the endeavor requires a radical alteration of one's lifestyle and priorities. However, for former civil engineer Matt Green, the effort has truly been a labor of love. Over the course of 6 years, filmmaker Jeremy Workman followed Green on his ambitious odyssey. Through it all, the director filmed many miles of his subject's travels. Shot during all 4 seasons in all 5 boroughs, Workman captured beautiful images of one of the world's greatest cities, including many that seemingly defy countless preconceptions held about New York. And as Green's journey was being documented, he further chronicled his efforts by taking innumerable photos of his adventures, posting them along with his thoughts and impressions in an ongoing blog. As enterprising as this project might seem, in some ways it was nothing new to the inner-city wanderer. Prior to taking on this task, Green walked across the U.S. from Rockaway Beach, New York to Rockaway Beach, Oregon. In both of these ventures, he learned to live simply, retaining only the most basic of possessions, and freely accepting help when it was offered. In his New York journey, for example, since he was not gainfully employed, he kept a roof over his head by looking after friends' homes, cat-sitting, or sleeping on the couches of those who generously offered him accommodations. As Green made his way throughout New York, he found his journey was not only one of touring the city, but also one of wondrous discovery. Having time to live without the burden of most of the everyday obligations we all feel we must address has given him an opportunity to notice the little things that make up the city he calls home. He has been able to gain an appreciation for the elements that constitute Gotham that many of us obliviously overlook. It's also enabled him to focus on subjects that he's found personally intriguing, from the quirky to the sublime. For example, he's paid particularly close attention to things like New York's surprisingly diverse plant life, from trees to flowers to fruits and vegetables growing wild in a diverse array of community and public gardens. He's also documented considerable information and images about the 5 boroughs' churchagogues, former synagogues that have now become churches or other houses of worship. Then there's New York's many 9/11 memorials, some official, some makeshift, all stirring and heartfelt. And there's the city's vast selection of hair and beauty salons, especially those that somehow manage to slip the letter Z into their names. More than that, though, the journey has helped Green discover much about himself, something that many of us seldom take the time to assess, and that he didn't do as often as he might have when he was living a typical professional middle-class existence. However, having been seriously injured in a bicycle accident before he began his journeys, and living through the ordeal of a brother who experienced a severe stroke at a young age, Green realized that tomorrow isn't promised. And from that, he concluded he didn't want his life to pass him by without taking the time to get to know himself better, something that the time afforded by his cross-country and New York journeys has enabled him to do. It was a decision that required him to make major adjustments to his life, such as breaking off the relationships that he couldn't sustain and divesting himself of nearly all of his belongings. But for him it was worth it. He learned that he could live comfortably and contentedly without the shackles that previously bound him, and that, quite frankly, bind most of us. The liberating effects have been more than worth the trade-offs, a consideration that may deserve a look for those of us who are restless or discontented and believe that there might be other possibilities for the way we live our lives. The sheer joy that Green gets from doing what he wants, when he wants, and on his terms would seem to bear that out. This stunningly beautiful homage to an incredible city, an inspiring individual, and the value of living life in the moment entertains while it enlightens, taking viewers on an odyssey of more than just the many striking attractions that Gotham has to offer. It also surveys the beauty within each of us, the parts of ourselves that we seldom see, but that are just as magnificent as any surface trappings. For his part, Matt Green got a glimpse of that and liked what he saw. At first glance, one might be tempted to say that that's a nice little gift to himself, a benefit of being fortunate enough to have the time to figure out how to lead a life unburdened by the hindrances of modern-day life. But he's not the only one to benefit from this. By sharing his experience, he's shown us how we can all do the same for ourselves if we have the will and character to choose to do so. Some may say there's no commercial value in taking on ventures like the one that Matt Green has tackled. But, as his experience has revealed, must that always be the case with anything that we undertake? Sometimes the sheer enjoyment value of pursuing such personally meaningful quests is far greater than anything that money can buy. And thankfully, there are still those among us out there who haven't lost sight of that. I'm Brent Marchant, the Cinema Scribe. Thanks for listening.
A lifelong movie fan and longtime student of metaphysics, Cinema Scribe Brent Marchant is the award-winning author of Get the Picture, Conscious Creation Goes to the Movies, Consciously Created Cinema, The Movie Lover's Guide to the Law of Attraction, and Third Reel Conscious Creation Goes Back to the Movies, all of which provide reader-friendly looks at how the practice of conscious creation, also known as the Law of Attraction, is illustrated through film. Brett maintains an ongoing blog about metaphysical cinema and other self-empowerment topics through his website, www.brentmarchant.com. He's also the movie correspondent for the Good Radio Network and New Consciousness Review magazine and radio, with additional writing contributions to Smart Women's Empowerment, The Happy Guide, Library Journal, Belief Net, Vivid Life, New Age News, and Master Heart Magazine. Brett holds a BA in Magazine Journalism and History from Syracuse University. Again, check him out at www.brentmarchant.com.